So it is connecting to YouTube right now. So they might be able to hear what they're saying. Not sure. Sometimes they can. I can hear my 6-year-old shouting down the stairs. That's a good start. Oh, do you know what? My youngest, my Dexcom beeped before. Well, I told you, told you that I had a bit of a difficult low before. It took a while to get it up. But when it first beeped, it was only at 4.9 and I'd not long had my tea. So I just turned my insulin off. But as soon as it beeped, she shouted, she was upstairs with me. She went, "Mummy, do you want me to run downstairs and get you something for your blood sugar?" And I was just like, "Oh, just eat you up." Right, everyone who is just joining us now, I have the lovely Jen Grieves with me. Now, I met Jen just over a year ago at TAD originally. That's where we met, wasn't it? TAD 2019. And then I did your podcast in May.
Yeah.
And then, but you quickly dashed off then to go to Love Island, didn't you? So the podcast didn't actually come out to about September time, I think it was. Right. Yeah, because then you were away working on Love Island for such a long time, because you do crazy jobs, don't you?
You've
had fun ones.
Yeah, I do. I go away a lot for work, obviously not at the moment, but I spend a lot of time in foreign countries in porta cabins, doing digital things for TV shows, and it's a lot of fun. I'm very, very lucky to have the opportunity.
Are they sweaty porta cabins, or do they have some aircon in there?
They get sweaty, but what it is there's like a big team, well not big, a team of us in this porta cabin, and it's small, and then you've got, people's body temperatures are all different, and someone might be closer to the aircon unit than another. So one person's freezing, another person's melting, and everyone's trying to find this like mid-ground temperature. But
how does that?
You just melt. So
does that affect? Do you find that affects your blood sugar then as well, whether you're hot or cold?
Yeah. Well, I definitely notice it when I go to hot countries.
Yeah, I do as well.
Yeah, but I guess
I need a lot less insulin in hot countries.
Yeah, me too. And then like everything sort of goes off, like, because we always change routine, and your shifts might be overnight sometimes depending on where I'm working. So it's quite interesting trying to get it all in, grapple with it. But once it's in a routine, like anything, it tends to be okay.
I've never found that routine in 30 years. The routine. Either I've not found it or it's not found me.
Even at the moment when we're not really, like, my day to day is very similar, and I'm still there like, what do you mean you're 4?
Actually, you would think, because this is probably the most like normal my life has been, same for you, you would think that my control right now will be better, but I am running like the highest I've been time in range is 35% in the last few weeks. That's terrible, isn't it? Like when I get my clarity thing, it was 32% this week. I don't know what's going on. But I have just changed pump, and I'm altering lots of things all the time. I'm just trying to get to grips with what needs changing properly. So we've got quite a few people watching. Yay! Hello, everyone who's watching. Okay. If you are watching, please say hi to us and send us your questions in. I'd love to receive some questions live. And if you don't already subscribe to the channel, please subscribe whilst you're here. So I've got Jen. If you just missed what I was saying before, because a few more have just joined us, Jen has lots of crazy jobs in digital producing for television. And she, when I last saw her in real life, she was about to dash off to Love Island. You've worked on I'm a Celeb, you've worked for Radio 1, you've worked on The Voice, haven't you?
Yeah.
So you spend a lot of time going through airport security with all of your stuff.
The way out is always, I don't get embarrassed. I'm very, open with my type 1, but going to airport security with, like, sometimes it's 3 months worth of Omnipods.
Yeah,
it's the volume of it. I'm like, hello, wow. Here you go. But
that's a lot of Omnipods.
Yeah, I haven't had any touch wood. I don't think I've had any sort of some people have wanted to see a prescription and stuff, which like that's fine, but it's more like it's just a lot to carry. But on the way back, I like skip through because I got this suitcase, this hand luggage, and it's completely empty. I'm like, no.
I've only ever had one bad airport security experience, and it was at Manchester, and it was horrendous. I cried. But yeah, other than that, they're generally all right. Especially since that happened, I have got a sunflower lanyard and never had an issue when I've had one of them. I find them super helpful. So me and you, we both manage our diabetes the same way, don't we? We both are on Omnipod and Dexcom.
Yeah.
We're little diabetes twins. How old were you when you were diagnosed, Jen?
I was, do you know, it's my anniversary next week. In 3 days, my goodness. So it was 1996, so it'll be 24 years next week. I was 8, just about to turn 9. Yeah.
Oh.
How old were you?
4. I was 4. It was at 1989.
Yeah.
1989, I was diagnosed. So we're similar age. So what are you, 98, 88, 87? What are you?
87.
87. That's the same as my husband. My husband's 87, is 1987, but everyone thinks he's older than me because
your skin's beautiful though. You've got a gorgeous glow in your skin.
I've got the whitest skin in the world. I was made to play Snow White, but no one's ever cast me as her.
Beautiful skin. Yeah, so you can remember bits, can't you, of your diagnosis?
So I can remember a bit.
Yeah.
I remember the hiding. I used to hide all the time. Yeah. I think it's only in later life where I've learned a lot more about childhood trauma because of adopting our girls, that I've realized that's why my earliest memories are what they are, is because was a really actually traumatic experience. I'd never really thought of it like that before, but it's a traumatic experience, isn't it? So yeah, that's my earliest memories, being diagnosed.
Wow.
I don't remember the doctor telling me. I remember being in hospital and hiding a lot. Yeah. I remember the hiding clearly.
And you obviously felt like you wanted to hide, which sort of shows that it wasn't a fun experience. Whatever was happening, you weren't enjoying it too much.
Yeah, I didn't want to be stabbed with another needle. I didn't want to be pricked again. Yeah, no. Yeah, it was clearly scary.
Yeah.
For me to be running away. How was your diagnosis experience for you? Like, how did you know?
Not dramatic in the sense of, I didn't collapse with DK. I know some people have really horrific sort of
issues. I've met loads of people who like ended up in DK. Luckily I didn't either.
It was definitely like we knew something was wrong. I was dropping weight, all the typical things. I remember being at a friend's house and being at hers, playing all day, and throughout the day I went, and I remember drinking a whole carton of orange juice, and I felt really guilty that her mum would be really mad that I drank the whole thing. But obviously orange juice is like the worst thing.
The worst thing, yeah.
But it was a full, not a little one, a big carton of orange juice. So through the day I was having that. And then, I remember, I'm going to say it, I wet the bed, and at 8 years old, that's quite unusual. So I do vividly remember the mattress being stood up on its vertical side, drying out, and just looking at it like horrified. I do remember that. I don't remember loads about leading up, but I remember the morning my mum booked a GP appointment and we went, and she's so organised. She got me, she knew something was obviously off, and she thinks ahead, like she's a Wonder Woman in that way, but she got me to pee in a empty jar of pickled onions that morning, which was just an awful way to wake up. And we were trying to be quiet so as not to wake my brothers, because she didn't know if it was like a hormonal thing. We didn't know what was going on, so it was like me and her, like in this secret morning wee. It was awful. And then in this jar, and she took it, put it in a handbag, went to the GP, and then the GP, he tested me there, and I think it was 30 point something. Yeah, it was very like, he knew straight away what it was. And he did turn around and say, would you be able to do a wee for me? And my mum was like, ta-da! Like, here's what I prepared earlier. So he took that. I think he was like, oh, okay. He took that. And I do remember being scared then, because it felt quite serious. You know, you can just sense. But at that point, I don't think they must have said what they thought it was, but I don't remember. And then they sent me to the hospital from there. But it was very much go home, pack a bag in case you need to stay over, and like sort, you know, my brothers needed babysitters or whatever. And we went. So it wasn't, you know, getting an ambulance. But yeah, and then that evening, I don't remember them saying diabetes that evening, but it was late at night. I do remember crying, like I had a doll, and my dad was carrying me down the hospital corridor, and I remember I was sobbing then. So whatever they'd said, it felt quite serious and stuff. I just remember them telling me I could never eat sweets again, and thinking, oh my God, like I'm 8, like my whole life is sweets. Like, what am I going to do? Like, so yeah, but that went out the window.
I recall a conversation in the back of the car, me sitting in the back of the car, and I don't know if it was on the way back from the hospital, but me asking something about chocolate and being told that I couldn't really eat chocolate again unless my blood sugar was low. And I was just like, what? I remember crying and like being really upset. You reminded me then, actually, when you're talking, I said my earliest memory was my diagnosis, but actually it's not it, because I remember clearly wetting the bed. And I say it in my show, and me and my sister were sharing a double bed. It was my Uncle Charlie's house. We were sharing a double bed, and I remember wetting the bed, waking up, was too embarrassed to go and wake my Uncle Charlie up. And I remember just moving to another dry patch and then just moving around the bed. So my sister like ended up like surrounded by my wee. I really vividly recall that. So, and that was a couple of days. I think that might have been what happened. Was I went to the doctors, and the doctor who diagnosed me passed away last week, actually. And I was really quite sad about that, because he went out of his way. So my mum had to persuade him to test me, but he did test me. But it wasn't a case of like pricking my finger there and then. I think it was either a blood test or urine test that got sent off. And then my mum and dad were away at my dad's work thing at the weekend. And I think that was when I stayed at my Uncle Charlie's and wet the bed loads. We came back to a note through the door because the doctor had been ringing and ringing and ringing, couldn't get hold of anyone. So you put a handwritten note through our front door saying, when you get home, you need to take Jade to hospital. I think she has diabetes. And so we ended up going to hospital. But we've got loads of people watching. No questions as yet. Please. Oh my gosh, I'm being daft. I've missed loads of questions. I was looking at the wrong bit of the screen. I am so dozy at times. So, David Stevens says hi to us both. And he was saying last year he met you and James Norton in the same pub after Tad, and they were nervous to ask for a photo, so I just took them to get one. Oh, did he take a photo of you and is he saying he took a photo of you and James together?
Yeah. There was a lot of people who wanted a photo of James Norton, and his friend had just arrived. And I think they'd incidentally just arranged to meet at that pub, not realising that everyone from Tad was going to that pub.
Yeah.
Very funny. Well, thank you for doing that. Yeah, I have a selfie with James Norton. I'm trying to get him on my podcast, so if anyone's got contact.
Honestly, he's the most difficult man to get in touch with. I've been trying to get in touch with him for the last year and a bit. Yeah. And then I get like messages it's always via Partha. Oh, James wants to do this. I'm like, okay, can you give him my email address? I never hear from him ever, never. I always say to JDRF, they're like, could James be in touch about the, and there's something happening that I'm not going to say, because I think it's been filmed. I don't know what's going. Anyway, I'm not going to say because I don't know what's happening with it or when it's happening, and I don't want to spoil the surprise. But he's supposed to be doing something for me, but I've not spoken to him directly about it, which is actually really difficult. I have to go via Partha to get to it.
Yeah.
So we've got loads and loads of comments. So I'm just going to fly through a few of them quickly.
Thank you for that selfie. I am indebted to.
So Andy Slowy, sorry if I pronounce it wrong. Evening, our favourite isolating cyborgs. Thank you, Andy.
Hey, Andy.
So I'm going to come back to David in a second. Amber McGrath says, hi, Jade and Jen. Nice to see your smiley faces. What have you guys been doing to keep yourselves positive during lockdown? I've been doing this. That's what I've been doing. What have you been doing, Jen?
I've been working on my podcast, series 2. The first episode came out yesterday. So it's called Type 1 and 1, if you haven't heard of it. And
I want to talk to you about that because I see you who you had as a guest.
Nina Wadia, she was.
Yes, I would love to get to chat to you about her afterwards.
Yeah, formidable woman, absolutely brilliant. So it was such an honour to chat to her. But yeah, Type 1 and 1 has been keeping me occupied because I was supposed to we were talking at the beginning about, you know, a lot of my work being abroad. So it's fair to say that I haven't got any work at the moment, but that's fine. I'm safe and healthy and well, and you know, there's less than happening. But
thing.
Yeah, of course. So with that, the podcast has been a great creative outlet and a nice way to connect with people. And especially at the moment, you were saying, you know, your blood sugars have been all over the place with lockdown and things. And I think at the moment, those of us who are experiencing that really are feeling the weight a bit more, like the trudgery of type 1 diabetes. So actually doing the podcast has been lovely to connect. And so much good stuff has come out of lockdown for me. Like I've got a whole row here of lovely handwritten cards from friends, and you know, I've been replying back, and just doing a bit more on YouTube than I normally would have time for. So actually,
that's the same here.
Yeah, most of my stuff that I've been doing has been around type 1, which is such a positive sort of thing to come out of A, having type 1, and B, this awful time where so many people are going through such awful things. So yeah, that's kind of kept me going.
I think the thing for me was I had such a busy 2020 planned. I had so many shows booked in.
Yeah.
And now, well, I don't know what's happening because nobody's talking about theatres at the moment. On all of the stuff from the government, there's no updates about theatres. I've got lots of my shows that were cancelled from March and May have been rescheduled for September, October. Right. I can't see them happening if I'm honest. I can't see theatres being open then. I think it'll end up being 2021. So yeah, it's changed a lot, but I suppose it's given me a lot more time to speak to people I wouldn't otherwise get to speak to virtually, like on Zoom and things like that. So I've had lots of interesting conversations. I've talked to people doing assignments on transition periods with type 1. I've talked to a guy who's writing a book about people with hidden illnesses who are successful. I've had loads of interesting interviews and things. So I've really enjoyed that. But yeah, doing this, chatting each Wednesday night with someone new, another wonderful type 1, that's been a thing that I've really looked forward to and has really kept me cheery, I reckon. Chris Bright says, what's going on? And then he says, legends you are. How are you both tackling social distancing and how has the management of type 1 been? So Chris, my type 1, I was just saying earlier, like my type 1, Jen, it's been awful. It's been horrendous. Yeah, it's just not good. Social distancing, I haven't really had too much because I've only been out on walks and generally people get out the way. So it's been okay for me. How's it been for you, Jen?
So my type 1's been like, it seems to go in weekly chunks, and I don't know if that's just my general mood. My type 1 having such a like codependent relationship that I think it just depends how I'm feeling. Even if I'm subconsciously feeling low level anxiety or a bit sluggish or whatever it might be, I think my diabetes has definitely shown me that, or it's been because of my diabetes. I don't know which. It's like chicken and egg, isn't it? You don't know. Yeah. So some weeks have felt good. Like I always make sure I get outside nearly every day. Not every day, but just because I'm isolating alone. So I feel like getting out in the air is quite important, just to stay in touch with the world and, not kind of see no one for days on end.
Yeah.
So, but then that being said, I live in London, so social distancing is a lot harder because it's so much more densely populated. So it's been fine. People are definitely, you know, for the most part sticking to the rules and stuff, but I've got a mask that I take, you know. I think just having an autoimmune
Yeah,
condition.
my mother-in-law's made us some masks, so we've got masks when we need them. The problem is my ears are so little that it kept pinging off, so now she's had to make me something that I have to put on the back of the mask to stop it from pinging off.
You have to be like a full
Kept falling off all the time. So yeah, but she's made me something to adapt it so it doesn't ping off.
It's funny when you're running and you sort of dodge. Like the first couple of weeks of lockdown, it felt so unnatural to actively avoid everyone, but obviously you do,
Yeah.
and you do. But now you sort of, you know, if you see someone on the path, you instinctively will cross the road. It's amazing. We adapt very quickly, don't we?
Yeah. It's really odd. It does feel odd to do it though. So I'm going to go back to a couple of questions David asked.
Yeah.
He wants to know, what was the most challenging blood sugar moment with your jobs? And then for you, just you, Jen, what did you most enjoy at Love Island? Who were you most excited to meet?
Do you want to do the blood sugar one? Have you got one?
Yeah,
Mine?
I can tell you a story. I had a hypo. I was having a hypo, but I didn't want to, because I've always been of the mindset that type 1 diabetes will not stop me from doing anything at all. I didn't want to let on to the director who was rehearsing for a big theatre tour I was doing. I didn't want to like make the excuse that my blood sugar was low. I just wanted to carry on. And he was working me so hard, and I clearly couldn't follow any of the direction because my brain wasn't computing anything properly because I was low. And eventually he said to me, once he gave me the invitation to say I was low, he said, are you all right, Jade? And once I got that invitation, I was like, no, I don't think I am. I think my blood sugar's low. And I tested it, and I think I was something like 1.6.
Oh my gosh.
But I was so determined to not let it stand in my way that, yeah, that wasn't really it's not really a good example to set. But yeah, that was difficult. I think I've had a hypo on stage as well, but I had Lucozade in the wings. I think it was a hypo. I didn't test my blood sugar at the time. It was 10 years ago. So I didn't have a Dexcom. Couldn't glance at my phone. But I always had Lucozade in the wings. So back when Lucozade was sugary enough. So
I don't think they considered that when they remarketed themselves.
No.
Rely on you.
Quickly had some hypo treatment in the wings while I was off stage. But yes, there's a couple of hypo stories from me. So have you got a challenging blood sugar moment with your job?
I'm trying to, those days where for some reason I've messed it up and I've woken up high, I find so hard to get back down from. And I remember a couple of those when I was working in Australia. And when I'm in Australia, we do night shifts because it's a TV show that comes on in the evening here. So it has to be worked on overnight and into the morning. And it goes on air at 7 a.m. the night towards the show. And so you wake up at midnight, and I remember waking up really, really high and just it not coming down all day, and then sat at the desk just like, but those days do happen, I think, thankfully quite rarely, but it's just those days where you feel like you're plowing in insulin and nothing is happening. I get really quite annoyed at myself for letting myself get into that situation, even though most of the time I'm so like, you're doing your best and that's all you can do and it's fine. Those ones I really don't like because they affect my personality, and that in turn I feel like affects like my ability to concentrate on my job. Like you just want to, nothing's going to get in my way, and then it sort of feels like it's winning a bit then, and I hate those. One incident I did have that was awful. I woke up at high. I happened to be, I can't remember, it was high teens, maybe 17, 18, and that isn't too like frequent, thankfully for me. I know, you know, over the years it's definitely been more regular, but I was like, oh no. So I went to dial in some insulin on my Omnipod, and the whole thing failed. Like the whole PDM system stopped.
Oh, no.
And it's midnight, and this bus comes once an hour to take you into work, and if you miss it, like you're late for your shift by an hour. And so like and obviously because you're waking up in the middle of the night, you leave exactly to the minute, like you get your routine down, like shower, get dressed, get ready, don't speak, you like wave at someone else on the bus and you don't talk, and and I was suddenly like, oh my god, I need to ring, I need to do it, what's going to happen? So I grabbed all my insulin injections that I had with me as backup. I was about to miss this bus. I just scooped everything up, and my housemate was like, something's wrong, isn't it? And I was like, but you know, it's midnight, so we were just like, get on the bus, and I have to make this phone call. Thankfully, because it's midnight there, it is daytime. Yeah, it's daytime in the UK. So I rang the Omnipod tech support people, and they were brilliant. I actually don't know if they might be 24/7 anyway, but I rang them and they helped me, and thankfully I reset it. But last time my insulin pump broke, it's happened twice, that like that. The last time that happened, it was completely kaput, and I was just like, oh my god, I'm going to have to go back on injections, and I'm across the world, and I can't speak to my consultant, and I don't know, or like, you know, I'm literally on the other side of the world and this is happening. And yeah, so that felt dramatic.
That is dramatic. My PDM failed and I had to get a new PDM, but it happened. I thought it was awful because it happened when I was in Durham, which is only 25 minutes, half an hour up the road from where I live. And I was only that far from home, and I thought it was the worst thing in the world. I think what it was I'd literally just arrived on my friend's hen do. and then I had to go home.
Yeah, you don't want that. That is dramatic, and you want to be at the hen do, thinking about the hen do and the fun, and
you want to have fun. Yeah.
Most importantly.
So, with regards to Love Island, what did you enjoy most about that? And was there anyone on that you were excited to meet?
Everyone's great. Like, everyone's obviously got their individual personalities, and the casting team are incredible. That they work so hard. I working on a show that has become such a like cultural phenomenon, and digitally it's one of the biggest TV shows out there. So career-wise, it's, you know, it's the pinnacle really of where you would get to in the industry. So working on a show like that, where everything you put out, like 2, 3, 4 million people are looking at it, at your little bit of content, is incredible. And being part of something where people feel so passionately about it, and it's about love. I love that. I love that it's about love, and you know, when they go in as islanders, you don't know them, and you sort of move with the nation as everyone gets to know all the personalities. And as soon as someone gets a bit hurt or upset, you recognize those feelings from having been in love and having been in relationships, and that's what makes it so gripping. And like, that's why
I love it. Like, I get like so gripped to it. I don't think I was as gripped on the last series, but I think that's because of what happened. There's winter one. I think that's because of the Caroline Flack thing that happened, and then that kind of, it was all a bit up in the air, wasn't it? And it must have been really difficult to work on that series. But yeah, I love it. It's car crash television at its finest. Is what I would say. And I love a bit of car crash television. Like, I love I'm a Celeb. I love all those reality things. I love watching the Kardashians and absolute rubbish like that. So yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Fun to work on. For sure. Yeah.
Let me move down to another question. Jade, what is your dream role in your acting career? Would you try and do West End? My dream role is I would love to be in my own crime drama. So not one that already exists. I'd like to be one like Scott and Bailey, and I'd want to be like either Scott or Bailey. So I'd want my own crime drama where I'm the lead detective in it. I don't think it's happening, like, but that would be a dream, because that's what I watch all the time. I'm obsessed with crime dramas. I love crime dramas and car crash television. So let me see. So Nick's calm, saying he remembers his diagnosis vividly, was 30. Doctor phoned up, said I had diabetes, said he'd referred to hospital, and there'd be an info pack at surgery, picked up and had labeled type 1, and that was the first he knew. The label on the pack. Wow. There you go. And David,
a lot of people, you know, especially people diagnosed younger, just haven't heard of it. I'd never heard of it, and you definitely wouldn't have heard of it at 4, would you?
No, my mum had, though. My mum had read about it, and I think it helped. My dad has a cousin who is type 1, So knew a little bit about it anyway, but my mum had recently read an article all about it, and as soon as my symptoms started, she picked up on them. Wanted me tested, and that's why the doctor thought she was a bit crazy, because it was very soon to be going in.
Right.
He was like, it's probably just a water infection, but yes, okay, we'll test her anyway, kind of thing.
So who knows? You just pick it up early. And
David says his diagnosis was fast, and his dad's a paramedic and his new wife an A&E staff nurse, and they said I should get tested. So I went out of hours doctors and was rushed in. That's good that they, obviously it's their job to know things like that. That's great that they picked up on it so quick. Nick said the hospital didn't call him for 48 hours. Wow. Shall we? We've got lots more comments to work through, which is great. Thank you guys for tuning in. And if you don't already subscribe, please do while you're here. I'm gonna keep scrolling down the comments. I won't miss any out, don't worry. But shall we talk about how to be a news presenter? You're gonna off your news presenting skills, aren't you?
Yeah, so obviously I work in entertainment now, as discussed, but I trained in news, which is probably the opposite end of the TV industry.
Yes.
Very, very serious. And
getting my script up that you've sent me.
Yeah, so I've written I started in regional local radio in Yorkshire, actually. So we were based in Hull, and I covered East Yorkshire and Northern Lincolnshire. It was a big patch. And I loved it. I would run out and grab stories every day, interview everyone from all walks of life, and football teams and people on the street and everything, go to court cases. And because regional radio traditionally is where a lot of people start, but you're doing everything, because commercial radio traditionally doesn't have a huge amount of cash flow. So you'd go out, get the stories, come back, you'd have recorded the audio, you'd edit the audio, and then you'd write your scripts and bulletins, and then you'd piece it all together, and then you'd go and run in the studio. Sometimes I ran in the studio because you have to hit that hour. I ran in, sit down, read this bulletin, and then off you go and rewrite it again for the next hour. So every day was wild. The days would go so fast, but it was so much fun. I loved it. But yeah, I don't work in news anymore. So it's been a while. It's been 10 years, I think, since I've sat in a newsroom and read a bulletin.
But I think the news voice is it's kind of an iconic type, serious kind of tone, isn't it?
Yeah, so I did have news reading training, and actually it never leaves you. So anytime I read a script now, it happens, and I'm like, no, I'm trying to be natural, or whatever it might be that I'm trying to read. And my cousins, they used to pick up the radio station where they lived, and they used to call it Jen's newsreader voice, and they used to laugh. They thought it was the funniest thing. I was like, it's not that different. They were like, yes, it is. So I remember training. So actually, I've written you a news bulletin. And
yes, you have.
So I don't know if you want to give it a go.
Okay.
Go through I'll go through the basics of how you do a news voice, I guess, versus a normal voice.
Give me the basic tips, and then I'll give it a read.
Okay. So people generally think, as you said, that you need to sound like the Queen, but that's not the case, or certainly not anymore, because
I'm not going to sound like the Queen, that's for certain.
You want to be relatable, and you want to be engaging, and if you purposely try and sound too different, you just sound comical. So you want to be clear, and you need authority, but you don't just sound like you're trying to be someone you're not. So that's the first point.
I should do a little vocal warm, shouldn't I? Lips, teeth, the tip of the tongue, the lips, teeth, the tip of the tongue.
Being an actor, you full well know, a lot of this actually will come in handy, I'd say. And then I'm just referring to my notes. So in radio in particular, there's no face. So you're not making judgments based on what anyone looks like. And that's why I love radio, because it's so instant and the connection. And same with podcasts.
I was presenting for a little while recently on our local radio station and absolutely loved it. Really
that's so fun.
Yeah, it really was. I had my own show on there and absolutely really enjoyed it. So definitely something I would be interested in getting into.
Amazing.
And Yeah, I always get those daft comments of family and friends that I have a face for radio because they're so
yeah,
lovely to me.
we
My
talked about
family
this
are
in
awful.
kitchen.
My husband calls me plate face.
I always say that I've got a moon.
Round and white like a dinner plate.
This one is not helping the situation.
Okay, sorry. So yeah,
Sorry.
I need to be engaging.
Yeah, and then breathing. Your breath is your most important tool. So a lot of the time, like I am now, I can hear that I'm talking in the back of my throat and you're fa la 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 la. And actually, when you're speaking for news, you need to speak from down here, and you need to have all your breath ready before you start the sentence so that you don't run out of steam. So you pull
just
out,
like singing, basically. Then
basically, yeah, you pull out the stomach and you hold it as you're ready to go, and that is also so that you don't do the thing.
Yeah, you don't want to hear that on the mic, do you? Yeah.
And then a lot of people, you can naturally talk, you know, you're interacting, you're interjecting, you're agreeing. And with news, it's not like that. You're speaking into the abyss. So you don't want low vocal energy. You need like cadence. So when you write a script, you always print it and then look at the most important bits of information and where you're going to emphasize the words. And that's so that if someone's in the kitchen or driving and they're like half paying attention to the radio, their ears are going to prick up because your voice sounds warm.
Okay, I should have done that. I should have printed it out and
marking. Yeah, we did that a lot. That's okay. It's okay. You'll be fine. And then what else? The tendency, I think, is to rush as well. So you want to just make sure you've got good pacing. And yeah, I think a good piece of advice is to imagine you're talking to one person. So I used to picture like...
I've got my phone up because obviously you WhatsApped me the script. And sorry, I just got really excited because a message just came through from someone saying, I just got put on Dexcom. And it's a foster parent in Darlington who's fostering a type 1. And I just got this message. And I thought, oh, that's such a nice message to get while we're doing it.
That's amazing. Have you been
trying to get her on Dexcom and she's managed, so that's good.
Oh, that's fab. What amazing.
Anyway, sorry, just got very distracted by that.
The other thing to think about is the tone. So in one news bulletin, you might go from serious murder to your silly, we call it "and finally," which would be a light-hearted story to end the bulletin on, and you'd go everything between. So this news story that I've given you is a positive story, so you can into your bulletin reading. But again, you don't want to sound like a cartoon, and also you don't want it to sound like an 80s DJ. Like that's not what you want to do either. As a newsreader, you want to sound different to the DJ that's just introduced you. You want to have that authority. So if you want to give it a go.
I'm just tapping my screen so it doesn't go black while I'm trying to read it. Okay. Right, I'm ready. Okay. A Darlington woman has become the first person in history to perform a play on the moon. 34-year-old Jade Byrne took her one-woman show Pricks into the stratosphere, watched by a peak of 4 million people via live stream earlier today. The moving and uplifting show, which is a retelling of Jade's life with type 1 diabetes, was performed in conjunction with NASA.
Great.
Was that a bit too cheery, though?
It was slightly more on the side of like children's presenter.
Yes, I did think that.
Once you relaxed a bit, you were
more serious.
It was very clear, which is very good. And you articulated very well. I completely understood the story. So yeah, we'll go again.
I'm going to try it slightly more seriously then, not as children's presenter-y.
Yeah, and it's more like now when I'm talking, my voice is all up here, and I come down.
You need to come down to here.
Come down a bit so that you've got that kind of gravitas.
Take my breath before I start. Right, okay, I'm doing it. Sorry. A Darlington woman has become the first person in history to perform a play on the moon. 34-year-old Jade Byrne took her one-woman show Pricks into the stratosphere, watched by a peak of 4 million people via live stream earlier today. The moving and uplifting show, which is a retelling of Jade's life with type 1 diabetes, was performed in conjunction with NASA.
Good.
Is that better?
The first bit was quite serious, but I think then again you relax, and you have to remember that you might be telling someone this piece of information for the first time. It might be the first time they hear it. So
yes,
sort of bear that in mind. They might have no prior knowledge of any of this. So yeah, but definitely that was definitely getting there. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll maybe have another go shortly. I'm looking at the time already. Gosh, I'm going to go over to the comments because I don't like to miss people out.
Okay.
So, David was 19 when he was diagnosed. And his sugars were above 40. Wow. But he didn't have ketones.
I don't know, how does that happen? I thought they went hand in hand, but I've heard someone else.
I don't think I had ketones. So if I did, we don't recall that if I did.
Yeah.
But in my life have had crazy blood sugars, and I have never ever recorded above 0.1 on the ketone meter when I've tested, which is
I need to research that, because I thought it was like your blood sugar's high, you've probably got ketones, you're at risk, BK.
You know what it's like, Jen. Like, we're all so different, aren't we? Like, we all have this same condition, but it's different with everyone. Like, everyone's so
I'm
individual.
fascinated as to what the link is and how that relationship works. So
yeah. Amber was also 4 when she was diagnosed 18 years ago now. The only thing I remember is playing with the toy kitchen at the hospital, which shows just how much of an amazing job my doctors and nurses did. Oh, that does. Yeah. Christopher King says, hi Christopher.
Hi,
hope you're all right.
Oh my God, Chris King has been being such an encouragement on my YouTube channel for years, and I'm really grateful for that. So thanks, Chris.
Oh, well, it's lovely to have you here. So I'm just fine. I'm trying to not miss any. Oh, hang on, it's just skipped down. There we go. Oh, Andy's just saying, after Tad, we completely filled that pub. I didn't give enough of a warning to the landlord when I made a reservation for us.
That's great. It's just so exciting when you're with other type 1s. You just suddenly realise like how much you yearn for that connection of people who know what you're going through. And I think on a day,
so nice to be in a room full of people that get it.
100%.
Amber says, if you could give yourself one piece of advice when you were first diagnosed, what would it be? And then she said, I wrote a blog over on my blog, Diabetes Geek, a letter to myself. It was literally, it was a really eye-opening experience. Bit of advice I would give myself would be to monitor my blood sugars much more closely when I was younger, because I didn't monitor them back then very well. I mean, we did, but just not like we do now. What advice would you give yourself?
I've written that blog down, so I'm definitely going to go and check that out.
Yeah, check it out.
Really interesting. I think for me, there was no sort of awareness of the psychological or emotional impact of the condition. So just being aware of it without being like, this is going to be huge, like just being made aware that it was even a thing. I think that one. And then 2, like the highs, the highs are never as high and the lows are never as low, in the sense that, it's a long old life of this. So don't get too caught up on individual numbers, and it's a big picture. So if you are doing your best and, you're doing what you can, give yourself credit and be kind to yourself, because we can be quite hard on ourselves, I think. So yeah,
I think that's really important advice. Christopher King says, does anyone have any other conditions? He has arthritis and type 1 diabetes. Plus today he was diagnosed with a frozen right shoulder. He's slowly falling apart. Don't worry, Christopher. I've got all sorts. Like, nothing like I've got carpal tunnel in my wrists. So like doing my hair is a nightmare and makeup is a nightmare. But I still spend hours doing it because I love it.
Obviously perfected it.
I've got arthritis in both my hips as well. But I think that I put that down to dancing, because I danced for lots of years. So I think that's why. Have you got anything else, Jen?
I've got hormonal bits and pieces, and then just generally day to day, I'm just an absolute calamity. And I'm like, no, I'm a 32-year-old woman who's got her life together, and then smack, I'll go and I fell when I was out running last week, and I ripped my lycra trousers completely down the knee. They're completely ruined. This huge scrape. I was just laying there in the path like, cool, she's got it together. So no, it's just what I do, but it's fine. I'm like, it's fine. But I used to dance as well, so I'm weirdly agile at the same time. And I'm like, how is this possible? Whatever. I've just accepted it now. It's okay.
We got a question from Nick Carr. Have there been any Jeremy Hunt moments? I had to really carefully say that, with mispronunciations. Have you ever had anything like that when you've said something wrong?
I remember when the World Cup was on and I kept saying Arsene Wenger. Arsene, what's the right way? I just kept getting it wrong and I knew what it was. And like
it's Arsene Wenger, isn't it?
Arsene Wenger. I think maybe I kept saying Wenger. And I knew what it was as well. And the big thing I used to get, because I was in Hull, like all the local, I've got this in my notes about formatting, if we want to go into how you write one, getting the local like pronunciations down. And I was this like southern softie who came up and I was like, hello, here I am reading the news. So getting the local little inflections down is really important. But yeah, and I also, when I started my job at Radio 1, quite early days, retweeted someone without looking at their @handle because it was a great comment and I was live, like doing live radio, whatever. And so you've got all these comments coming in, you're like, that's a great one, retweeted it, and they had a really inappropriate @handle. It was really bad. And
oh God.
Yeah. And I left, my boss then found it and had to like unretweet it. But it's just the nature of being in the live environment. But yeah.
Chris Bright says he's not sure that he's got news reading in the locker. He'll stick to kicking a ball about. David would like to hear you read the news briefing that you've written for me. So we'll do that in a minute. David says he also sounds too Welsh to read the news.
No such thing anymore, Dave. It used to be RP, you need to sound like this.
No,
especially
that's not
people
cool anymore.
Yeah, it's good to have a different mix of voices. There's one on Radio 1, the Welsh guy, he's fab. He's got a great voice. I don't know if he's still on Radio 1. What's his name? I should know. He's got a really, really super thick Welsh accent and it's lovely. I love hearing him read.
I like a Welsh accent, so I think we should get David to film us a little news briefing and send it to us. Right, okay, so let's go back. Sorry, Amber's just said her blog, she made a typo. Her blog's called Diabetes Geek, and it does have the S in there. So that's great. And David said he's going to do that. He's going to record himself doing a news briefing for us. So right, okay, you have a go at the news that you wrote for me, and then I'll maybe have a final go. Okay. It's getting on to. I like to get off. I like to wrap up before 9 o'clock because I don't want to encroach on the tweet chat host, GB Dog tweet chat host.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So yeah, this it is a different voice, and I can't even tell you how it happens now. It just happens. So
okay, I can't wait to hear it.
You'll think it's ridiculous as well because it kind of is. But okay.
I've got some papers that worked out on there, but I thought, that's what they do, isn't it?
You can't do that on radio. You have to be very quiet. Anyway, okay, so. Okay. A Darlington woman has become the first person in history to perform a play on the moon. 34-year-old Jade Byrne took her one-woman show Pricks into the stratosphere, watched by a peak of 4 million people via live stream earlier today. The moving and uplifting show, which is a retelling of Jade's life with type 1 diabetes, was performed in conjunction with NASA. That's the latest. I'm Jen Grieves.
Oh, I'm going to do that at the end of mine. That's latest. I'm Jade Byrne talking about myself. Okay, I'm going to do that at the end of mine. I like that. I like your news voice. It's good. It's good. Right, I'm going to have one. Let me get it back on my screen and just pop it there so I can see the words. Right, I'm going to have one last go.
Okay, you've got it.
A Darlington woman has become the first person in history to perform a play. Blah, blah. Starting again. That wasn't a good one.
Okay, that's all right.
Oh, right. A Darlington woman has become the first person in history to perform a play on the moon. 34-year-old Jade Byrne took her one-woman show Pricks into the stratosphere, watched by a peak of 4 million people via live stream earlier today. The moving and uplifting show, which is a retelling of Jade's life with type 1 diabetes, was performed in conjunction with NASA. That's the, what was the, you said at the end?
The latest.
That's the latest. I'm Jade Byrne.
Yeah!
I forgot what I was supposed to say at the end.
Great.
That was fun. That was fun. Amber's just said, David said that was so good when you did that. Amber's just said, though, I hate to inform you, Jen, but your news voice is similar to your podcast voice. Who would have thought?
I know, this is what I mean. When I'm trying to script the ads, I'm trying to do it normal, I'm trying to chat, and I'm like, hello.
But it's funny.
I'm like,
you do that, because when I perform, whenever I act, I automatically get more northern. So like I put a voice on when I do pricks, I get really northern, and I know I'm northern anyway, but like I get like proper Teesside kind of accent. And I don't know why I do it, but I do it every time.
It's great. So I guess it's you, isn't it? It's who you are, and the show is so much about your life. And you've got that real connection to where you're from, and I love that. So I'd say that's a great thing. Oh yeah, I don't know what that is though. I'm the same. It's automatic. As soon as I get the mic up, this voice comes out, and I'm like, who is that?
Have you got anything exciting coming up that you're working on other than the podcast in lockdown, or is it podcast? Is that everything at the moment?
Yeah, like bits of digital work. One of my TV shows that I'm supposed to be on right now is on hold, so I'm hoping that it isn't completely like cancelled for the year. So we'll see if that comes back. Depends what happens.
I think I know what TV show that is.
Well, one's been cancelled,
right.
And then I've got maybe two more that hopefully will come back later in the year. But it's all who knows at the moment, isn't it? Just got to sit tight, and then just gonna wait and see. Like, that's the thing about being freelance. You never know when it's all going to change, and
I know.
It made me be very creative though, so I'll be interested to see if it does continue, like what else might come out of it.
We can, as a freelancer, today, I think it's today that they've launched that we can fill in the form, the self-employed people can fill in that form to whatever the government is, whatever they're offering us, whatever percentage of our wage for last year, you can fill in that form today, just for a little bit of info for anyone else that's tuned in and self-employed. Apparently that form is now live and can be filled in, and you can make your claim. I'm going to be doing that because I had a lot of things booked in the diary that is not happening now. So.
Really do. Like, at least hopefully, mine can be a bit remote, but it's kind of not the essence of the heart of what you do, is that it's in front of you, isn't it?
The only income, and to be fair, it's not income because it goes straight into my company, Blackbird Creative Arts, Pricks products that I sell on Etsy. All the money from that goes into Blackbird Creative Arts to then make more theatre. So the only money I'm getting at the moment, I'm not, because that's going into the company, which is then to create more theatre. So no, I'm not really getting anything at the moment. But David has just sent me a voice message I've seen.
Oh my God.
Let's see if it's, I hope it's his news briefing. It's 27 seconds long. I'm going to play it and hopefully the mic will pick it up.
I hope there's no swears, David.
Oh, hang on. I've not got my volume up on my phone. Right. Oh, yeah, he's giving it a go, but now I can't get back to the start. Okay. So, yeah.
I'm David, it's 1 o'clock, and here's the latest Welsh news. 2 properties in Newport Gwent have been cordoned off after the discovery of a suspected bomb at the front of their houses. A bomb disposal team from Portsmouth were called to deal with the explosives on Baysleg Road at around 2 o'clock. Police have taken the items to Newport Police Station, where it will be inspected by the Royal Navy's Bomb Disposal Unit.
Oh,
that was great.
Well done, David. Good man for trying. I'm so happy you sent that in. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to myself and Jen. Jen, thank you so much for joining me. And you were very accommodating, because Jen was going to be next week's guest, but Mel Stevenson-Gray will hopefully be better for next week. She's really not very well. So let's send her lots of well wishes. She's got all the symptoms but tested negative for COVID-19, but I don't think that necessarily means anything, because I hear that people have tested negative, then tested positive later on, kind of thing. But yeah, she's hopefully is on the mend now, and will be with us next week to do a workout. The lovely Mel Stevenson Gray. But thank you, Jen. Thank you for being a superstar and doing it a week early.
Yeah.
And thank you everyone for tuning in. Please subscribe to my channel if you don't already. I would love it if you did that. And Jen's. Yes, definitely. She's at Miss Jen Grieves on pretty much all social media, aren't you?
Yeah.
I'm at Pricks Official. Find us both, like us, love us, follow us, all of that stuff. And come back next week for Prick Me Up with hopefully Mel Stevenson Gray. Thank you guys, and I'll see you all again soon.
Bye guys.